Coming up sooner than you realize, down in the Southern District of Illinois, East St. Louis Court, they're going to be hearing the consolidated cases against Illinois' gun ban and the allegations that the ban on 170 semi-automatic weapons and magazines over a certain capacity with a gun registry that's set to open October 1st through January 1st, and criminal penalties if you don't comply, unless, you're part of the carve-out of law enforcement, retired law enforcement, or others in the law enforcement and security sectors. This, of course, has been a topic we've covered quite a bit in detail, focusing on that law, PICA, the Protect Illinois Communities Act, as it's being called, and you've got the ban being challenged in federal courts, and we'll hear what happens out of the Southern District April 12th. I do plan on being there. We'll bring you the very latest the following morning, if not in live time, as we get the details and we're able to report those out. If you follow me on Bishop on Air, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, I think the best way, though, is probably Twitter, where everything kind of just gets piped through in a feed. So just search Bishop on Air, and you can connect with me that way. But we, of course, have been also following what's happening in the state level challenges. And you've got a case that's out of Macon County, making it all the way up to the Illinois Supreme Court. Now, this challenges not the Second Amendment issues. This challenges the issue of equal protection because of that carve out of certain individuals like law enforcement, retired law enforcement, others in the security industries. They are carved out of this law, so they can go out and buy these certain types of weapons and magazines. And actually went to a retailer the other day and saw that they had AR-15s. It was behind a gate with a sign that said, these are only available to certain individuals. So the state level cases are being challenging the state's law on the issue of equal protections. But it's up in the Illinois Supreme Court. One controversy that's developed more and more about this is two justices on the Illinois Supreme Court are the recipients, their campaign funds are the recipients of $1 million campaign contributions from Governor J.B. Pritzker. He gave $500,000 from his campaign fund, $500,000 from his trust to each of two candidates. It's not just Pritzker's what plaintiffs in the case say are unreasonably large campaign contributions. It's also House Speaker Emanuel Chris Welch, who gave six-figure donations to these two justices. Welch and Pritzker are the top defendants in this challenge against the state's gun ban. There's also questions about a Senate Democrat fund and how that may have played in this through, giving money to different other types of groups that were giving money to these candidates and so on. But regardless, the motion's been made to have these justices recuse themselves during a House Appropriations Committee hearing yesterday. And this is, typical process at the Illinois State House. They talk with, various state agencies, including the Illinois Supreme Court. And Chief Justice was there to sound off on this, Mary Jane Teese, and she is asked a question by State Representative Brad Halbrook.
Final question, although I just had it here differently. So just a kind of a question, I guess. Do you think that the Justices Rockford and O'Brien, they were just recently elected, is that correct?
That's right.
Do you think they'll do the right thing and recuse themselves in relationship to the gun ban case?
There are motions pending before the court as we speak, and at this point, I'm not going to make a comment on those motions until they've been decided.
All right. Thank you guys for your answers.
So,
and Mr. Chairman,
there you go. The Chief Justice saying that she's not going to make any comment on this issue until a motion's decided to recuse these two justices. So, Mom at Arms, a blog that's really cracked this story open, went even deeper and found some videos of these then Supreme Court justice candidates talking about a couple of things. And one in particular we talked about yesterday, but I just want to re-air that, and that is Elizabeth Rochford, who did receive campaign contributions from the governor and Speaker Welch. She was asked about how to remain impartial when conducting themselves as members of the judiciary, and this is just the tail end of what she had to say.
I think that's part of the journey, is first acknowledging that these things are real. They exist for all of us, and we're human beings, but we have a very important job to do. We're held to a higher standard. And also just finally, that sometimes also even the appearance of bias. So you may not be acting in a way that it really is biased, but the way that you operate in your courtroom can present the impression of bias to other people. And sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's things you don't even think about. That's why you need to be constantly examining of yourself and the way that you run your courtroom, because you can give the impression to other people that it's a very clubby place, or, when when somebody walks in, a litigant scared to death and feels that they are an outsider in a courtroom and that other people are at an advantage, whether they are or aren't, just that appearance of bias is a dangerous thing, and it undermines the credibility of our judicial system.
So that's Elizabeth Rochford responding to a question about how to remain impartial. This was nearly a year ago when she was asked this question. Before the 2022 election, gets $1 million from Governor J.B. Pritzker, gets elected. Pritzker enacts the gun ban, and now Pritzker, as a defendant, is going to be in front of Elizabeth Rochford and another Supreme Court justice candidate who also got $1 million. We'll hear a comment that she made months ago before the election as well about the idea of equal protection. So we'll hear from Mary O'Brien next from a candidate statement to the League of Women Voters. That's coming up. Stay tuned. It's here at Springfield's Morning News on WMA. Back at it, talking about the Illinois Supreme Court and whether or not two justices that received $1 million from Governor J.B. Pritzker, who's the lead defendant in the gun ban challenge, will recuse themselves. They're going to hear that case in mid-May. And if you recall, Governor J.B. Pritzker, when I asked him about this early last month, this is what he had to say about the idea of these justices recusing themselves because of his high-dollar donations to these justices. Here's the governor's response from early March when I asked him the question here in Springfield.
I am sure this is something that the right wing is trying to stir up. I know you've written about it. The fact of the matter is I supported candidates who are running all across the board. If you're suggesting that the fact that I gave money to, let's say, the Democratic Party or to the committees that supported candidates means that everybody who received any money has to recuse themselves from anything to do with the state of Illinois, that's ridiculous. And I've certainly never asked anybody to vote a certain way or decide on a case a certain way. I would never do that. I never have. I never will. And these are independent judges, and they didn't go around and campaign on things, that they thought would win my support for them. I believe in them. I supported them like lots of other people did.
So that's, again, Governor J.B. Pritzker responding to my question from last month. Now, Mary O'Brien, another candidate, again, for Supreme Court, who ultimately was elected, she was talking about one issue that's crucial and central to this case at a candidate forum back in October.
Elected in 2004 and was retained in 2014 with about 80% of the vote. And I asserted just under 19 years. In June or in December, it will be 19 years. While I've been on the appellate court, I have been a presiding judge, which I am this year 3 times. So that means I do a lot of administrative work there. I also am a member of the Courts Commission. Duties of, my professional life, being a judge, but really my vocation and my obligation is to provide a fair and impartial forum for people to resolve their disputes, because that's what we do in a democracy. We don't run out in the streets and take up arms. When we don't get along, when we can't agree, we use our legal system. So I have dedicated the last 19 years of my life professionally to making sure that people have the 2 most basic tenets of democracy as it pertains to the judicial branch, and that's due process. That you actually get your day in court, and that you feel that you've been heard. And second is equal protection, that the laws apply the same to everyone, no matter what your economic status is or your social status, that the laws are going to apply equally to everyone.
So again, just some of the voices that you're hearing. They're Supreme Court justice candidates from then, and now they are on the bench. They received $1 million from Governor J.B. Pritzker, and they are set to hear this case in the Illinois Supreme Court challenging Illinois' gun ban in mid-May. We'll track all of that for you and continue our reporting here. I'm Greg Bishop.
From the Fly SPI Studios.